Hi everyone, my name is Mandala. I'm an English teacher in Australia and I've been teaching English for 12 years in my whole life. As a person who has been learning English for a long time, I find studying about English is very interesting and also very challenging at the same time. So today we're going to be talking about English syntax. Now I know when you think about English syntax, what comes to your mind is about learning grammar. But English syntax and grammar are two different things. Grammar is about the set of rules. English syntax is about how we find this set of rules. Okay, so in my explanation later, I'm going to make it very simple for you to understand about English syntax. All right, before we go with English syntax, I'd like to go with something which is a bit more general: language and linguistics. Language, by definition, means a means of communication or a tool of communication that is both arbitrary and conventional. Arbitrary means that there is no reasons why a certain thing is called in that way, or why a word is formed to represent a certain thing or a certain occurrence. For example, when we have this thing, we call this as a bottle, right? But if I ask you, why is this thing called a bottle? We don't have a reason for that, okay? And that's called arbitrary. That's the first characteristic of a language. The second characteristic is called conventional, which means agreement. So when I showed you this thing, we call this as a bottle because the English speakers agree to call this as a bottle. So if both you and I are forming a new language, let's call that language as Mandala's language, and we want to call this thing as beetle, for example, beetle, then it's conventional. We both agree in our own language, Mandala's language, that we call this thing as beetle. So language is arbitrary and conventional. Second one is linguistics. Linguistics is the study of a language. Now, this is something that is very interesting for me. Linguistics has many branches. We have sociolinguistics, psycholinguistics, forensic linguistics, descriptive linguistics, and many more. But it also has sub-branches. Some of the sub-branches in English, in a language, for example, are like morphology, phonology, discourse analysis, and syntax. So syntax is one of the sub-branches of a language. Now, if you ask me, why do we have to learn English syntax? Learning English syntax is important because by learning English syntax, we can discover the sets of rules and principles in English. Therefore, we can understand the structures, we call this one the grammar, more clearly. The second one, we can also understand the meaning and communicate better in English. Okay, that's why learning English syntax is important. Now, before going with the example of how to find the rules in English, I would like to tell you that a language has two properties. The first property is that a language shows that there is no correlation, no relationship between sounds and meanings. Okay? For example, the word hot dog. The word hot dog doesn't have anything to do with the word hot or the word dog. So the sounds and the meanings don't correlate. Or for example, when we want to refer to a building where we live under, we call that as a house. But we can also call that building in different ways. We can call that as casa or mason. So sounds and meanings don't have any relationships. That's the property number one. The second property is that a language makes infinite use of finite sets of rules and principles. Now, I know it sounds confusing. Infinite means variations. So languages can make variations from Finite means limited, limited sets of principles and rules. I know you're still confused about it, but let me get down to it later. Yeah, is how do we find the rules in a language? Now, of course, when we find the rules, we need data. The data in English come from two sources. Number one is the intuitions, or we can call that as the judgments from the English native speakers. Therefore, sometimes English native speakers can say that, oh, the sentence doesn't sound natural, or the sentence doesn't make sense, is not grammatically correct, for example. That's we call as intuitions or judgment. That is the first source of data. The second source of data is called as collected data sets or corpora. So the people in the past have formulated some rules that we are still now using up to this age. We call those collected data sets as corpora. Okay, now let me get down to what I have mentioned before. For example, if we want to find a rule in English, I have one word that is the word evidence. Okay, the word evidence cannot be added with s or cannot be put in a plural form. That's number one. Cannot be preceded by the word or an, so we cannot say an evidence, or cannot be replaced by the word the one. Evidence is the one. It doesn't sound right. The same goes for the word equipment. Equipment cannot be put in a plural form, cannot be added with infinite article like or an, or cannot be replaced by the word the one. That's number one. But if we compare the words evidence and also equipment with the words clue and tool, for example, the words clue and tool can be put in a plural form or can be preceded or put after the word or an. We can say a clue or a tool, and can be replaced by the word the one. So with these two comparisons, we can make a hypothesis, a conclusion that there are at least two kinds of nouns in English. Countable nouns, they are the words clue and tool. Uncountable nouns, which are the word equipment and evidence. But the first hypothesis is not enough. We have to make a comparison too with another one. For example, we have the word cake and beer. Okay, cake and beer can be put in plural forms. We can say cakes with s or beers with s. But the word cake and beer can also be put after the word less. Less is actually followed by uncountable nouns, but we can say less cake or less beer. Therefore, by this comparison, we can say that there are at least three kinds of nouns in English. Countable nouns, clue and tool. Uncountable nouns, equipment and evidence. And countable and uncountable nouns together, they are the word cake and beer. Okay, so understanding this is the job of English syntax. We can understand that, oh, there are structures like this in English. That's the first function. Second function is by understanding the structure, we can also understand the meaning of a sentence. Okay, for example, if there is a sentence, I saw that gas can explode. This sentence itself has two meanings. Okay, the first one is said in this way: I saw that gas can explode. The first sentence refers to gas in general, and the speaker wanted to say that all gas can explode. I saw that gas can explode. The second one, I saw that gas can explode. So in the second sentence, the speaker talks about something specific to say that that gas that the speaker saw can explode. All right? So understanding English syntax is important for us to learn a language because we can learn the structures And learning the structures can make us understand the meaning better. Therefore, we can communicate the language in a more effective way. Alright, that's all about my first video. We're gonna meet again in other videos. See you!